The White House has warned Congress that the United States is running out of money for Ukraine. Officials say this will affect Kyiv's ability to defend itself from Russia. In a letter sent to House and Senate leadership, the Office of Management and Budget Director Shalanda Young wrote, quote, cutting off the flow of U.S. weapons and equipment will kneecap Ukraine on the battlefield, not only putting at risk the gains Ukraine has made, but increasing the likelihood of Russian military victories. President Biden has asked lawmakers for a $106 billion package that includes funding for Israel and Ukraine. But House Speaker Mike Johnson says the Biden administration has not done enough to earn the support of his members to send more money to Ukraine. Republicans also want more to be done at the border in a trade for that money. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Ukrainian President Zelensky will address senators via video on Tuesday. Connor O'Brien joins me for more. He's a defense reporter for Politico. Connor, let's just start with the question of what happens when this money turns off. What happens at a practical level?
Well, what the administration is warning is that basically, they won't have money left to replenish the weapons that are being sent. They won't have money for the Pentagon to pay defense industry to contract for new weapons that get sent to Ukraine. There are some non-funding authorities that the administration has to take weapons, off the shelf, basically out of military inventories and send those on into the fight. Send them straight to Ukraine, which has been the primary mechanism that the U.S. has been using to aid Ukraine. But I think the warning here was you don't have more funding, then you can't replenish those. That affects U.S. Military readiness. And in Director Young's letter to congressional leaders, she also pointed to the aid packages have been getting smaller as the funding has diminished. So what the administration is really saying is, Congress, you get this done before you leave for the year, or there's going to be a risk of reversing those battlefield gains that had been made by Ukraine.
So that's really interesting and helpful. So it seems like there is a bit of a buffer between on-the-ground effects in Ukraine and the moment we're in now. Let's imagine Congress doesn't get its act together by the end of the year. Is there a going theory about how that would affect the battleground situation whenever that would kick in?
I think that's pretty. That's pretty tough to say. There's going to be. I think the changing. The one thing to note, I think, is going to be that there's a changing battlescape with the winter coming on. I think there are a lot of concerns about things like protecting Ukrainian infrastructure from missile attacks, things like that. Air defense has become a big component of this war, of Ukraine's ability to defend itself. That's a very high-end capability, very costly. So those aspects may change, but if funding is an issue, there could be those impacts.
And finally, in terms of the support for the war, there's obviously this horse trading that's going on with respect to money for the border versus the administration's request for Ukraine and Israel. But what's your assessment of the Republican support for Ukraine's war effort and how it's diminished? That's obviously why Volodymyr Zelensky is speaking to the Senate, is to try to buck up some of those losses that might have happened among Republicans.
Yeah, well, and on Capitol Hill, there is still, generally speaking, fairly solid bipartisan support for Ukraine. But there are caveats to that. Obviously, the majority of House Republicans in the most recent kind of test votes that have happened on Ukraine have, a majority of them have opposed new funding. Those kind of break down into certain camps. There's a faction that will never vote for another dollar. But then there's an even larger faction that recently has opposed funding. And you talk to some of those members, they do want the assurances on the border. They do want the Biden team to do more to talk about what is the end game of the conflict. How do they see this? How do they see this concluding? What is going to occur to make sure that this war doesn't drag out another year or two or so on? And then the Republicans are not in the mode of wanting to add more money to the deficit. So I think there is a desire to. President Biden asked for 106 billion for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and the border. 61 billion of that Ukraine. I think there's a desire among a lot of Republicans to cut that number down, and exclude humanitarian aid. Try to force Europe to do that. Focus on the weapons.
All right, Connor O'Brien, defense reporter for Politico. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.